Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, thank you for inviting me to speak today. My name is Alicia Kozakiewicz. A Pittsburgh resident, I am 19 years old and a sophomore in college. And for the benefit of those of you who don't remember those headlines, I am that 13-year-old girl who was lured by an internet predator, transported across state lines to Virginia, in fact, not so very far from here, and enslaved by a sadistic pedophile monster. The authorities told my parents that the odds were 1,000,000 to 1 against my recovery. But I was the exception. I got the miracle. I was rescued. So why me? Because I was blessed by the simple fact that I live in Pittsburgh, where one of the very best cybercrime task forces was created. And because I was enslaved in Virginia, where one of the best Internet Crimes Against Children task force, or ICATs, exists. Because they had the training, the knowledge, and the expertise to find that needle in the haystack. That was a lost little girl. That was me. Because they had the cooperation of another fine ICAC team here in Virginia. Because they were there. I am here. They're the only reason that I am here in front of you today. But I want you to know that I am not up here alone. Beside me, there are so many young girls whose stories will never be heard because they are dead, possibly enslaved, or just too terrified to speak out. When I speak, what I say is for all of us who exist in pain and fear and sometimes even shame, and for those of us who have been silenced by the grave. So I guess you need to know how it happened and why I let it happen to me. I want you to stop thinking that right now. As one young girl said, just because someone leaves without a struggle doesn't mean that they left willingly. It's been 5 years, and I've just begun to answer that question myself. I know that many of you perceive that those of us who have been lured via the internet as being the stereotypical troubled wild child. Drugs, broken families, searching for love you can't find at home. Nothing could be further from the truth. Many of us were the shy children, the wallflowers, not necessarily the geeks or the freaks, just not the partiers. And sometimes, as in my case, those that were very shy. The internet provides a type of anonymity that allows the timid child to miraculously transform themselves. They are suddenly able to act without the fears that have constricted their daily lives. Take myself, for example. So, in an attempt to impart some clarity here, let me start at the beginning. Pick a teenage girl, any one of us, and we'll be suffering agonies over at least one, and probably more of these situations. Imagine your 13th birthday was last month, and for some ridiculous reason, your parents still think you are a child. You're sitting home, bored and lonely, because your best friend just decided that you're not so cool anymore, and your other best friend has moved far, far away. That person you have an unbelievable crush on, they think you are the biggest geek. You have a D in algebra, despite your best efforts, and you won't be making the honor roll this semester. And nobody understands anything at all. Nobody ever will. You are alone in this world, and you're so bored, so lonely, that you're online, just chatting. So let me start closer to the beginning. I was 13. I was a good student. I had a few good friends. I had the most wonderful, loving, and supportive family a child could ever ask for. And yet, at 13, we change. We question everything, especially ourselves. I was that typical bored, shy, and lonely child, just looking for something to do. In the beginning, I chatted for months with Christine, a beautiful red-haired 14-year-old girl who just understood me all too well. We became the very best of friends, and we shared all of our thoughts, all of our intimate girlhood secrets. There was nothing that she didn't know about me, and we traded our school pictures. Too bad that hers were fake. Yeah, Christine was really a middle-aged pervert named John, and he had lots of practice at his little masquerade because he had it all down. The abbreviations, the music, the slang, the clothes, he knew it all. I never had a chance. Because these perverts, they congregate on the net. They pass their little girlfriends around to each other, and they share technique, and they boast of their conquests. John's goal was to introduce me to a great friend of hers. This man was to be my abductor, my torturer, and he was my dearest friend. My relationship online with Tyree grew slowly, over a period of about 6 months. He was courteous and interesting and subtle. He was thoughtful and gentle and nice, and of course, entirely deceptive. And so we became friends. Slowly, imperceptibly, he led me into more intimate conversation. I never even realized that our chats had become more intimate. So we just talked about everything, not just about sex. He was interested in me as a person, my thoughts, my goals, my relationship with friends and family members. He gave me adult advice and always took my side, and that was just what I needed. School was, well, it was school. Mean girls and nasty boys and everyone trying to be all that they're not. And my family and I were very close, but we didn't always see eye to eye about everything. Sometimes they just seemed to still think that I was still a child. But there was always my secret special friend, and I could count on him to see things my way. He was my confidant, and I wanted to tell him personal things, or parrot those things that he wanted to hear from me, whatever gibberish they were. And so I did, always online, always ready to talk, always on my side. It was the most comforting thing imaginable. And soon I felt an obligation to return this time, to always be there for him to the exclusion of everything else. He became that someone I believed I needed, the only one I could depend on to understand the real me. He had separated me from my support structures. I was alone. Somehow in this process of grooming me, he had changed me, had destroyed my ability to reason. Was I crazy? No. Was I brainwashed? Entirely. Today, I think, how could it have happened? Where was my reason? Where was my sanity? That girl who walked out into the coldest, iciest night to meet the madman, that wasn't me. And yet, somehow it was. He took me apart and put me back together, and bit by bit, day by day, bite by bite. I walked out the front door and found that the boogeyman is real, and he lives on the web. I know. I met him on the evening of January 1st, 2002. He came for a 13-year-old girl, for a sex slave. He came for me.